You're going to pull those foods out of your diet 100% and see how the absence of those foods impacts your energy, your sleep, your digestion and bloating, your cravings, your mood and focus, and aches and pains and migraines and hot flashes. All of those things can be impacted by the food you eat.
If you're a parent who's tired of endless scrolling, sponsored ads, and wondering if you're really buying the right thing, let me tell you about LushLife.ai. LushLife.ai is an AI-powered shopping assistant built specifically for parents. It delivers trusted, ad-free, retailer-agnostic recommendations for baby and toddler essentials, all vetted, all parent approved. They do the research, comparisons, and filtering for you, so you save hours and cut the mental load. And when you register, you can save searches, build wish lists and registries, and track products as your family grows. This is where busy parents shop smarter, faster, and with confidence. Register now for early access at lushlife.ai. Welcome back to the Running Wine Mom podcast. I'm your host, Samantha Cieslinski, aka the Running Wine Mom. Today, we are talking with someone whose work has touched millions of lives, shaped entire wellness journeys, and given so many of us the reset we didn't know we needed. I'm sitting down with Melissa Urban, the creator of the Whole30, a program that so many people, maybe even you, consider every January when we are feeling ready for a fresh start. But today, we're going deeper than food lists and recipes. We are talking about why a reset matters, how to make it doable for busy moms, and what it looks like to step into the new year with clarity and confidence instead of punishment and pressure. Whether you're Whole30 curious, Whole30 experienced, or you've just been craving a sense of control again, this conversation is here to support you. So without further ado, let's welcome Melissa. Welcome, Melissa.
Hi, Samantha. Thanks for having me. That was a great intro.
I'm so excited to talk to you because, like so many, we are talking in the midst of the holiday season, and it is hard with all of the extra sugar and wine and fun that we are having. So I know I'm going to be ready in a few weeks to just reset myself.
Yes, there is a reason that January is the most popular month for programs like the Whole30.
Yeah. And so before we get into that, we start each episode with our wine, and what of the week segment. This is where we share our favorite bottle of wine or drink. Maybe that is Whole30 approved and vent about something that has been bothering us and celebrate our recent victories. So grab a glass, take a deep breath, and let's get started. So Melissa, what is your drink of the week?
Yeah, I'm not a big drinker right now, but I am into kombucha.
Okay.
So Hum has a few Whole30 varieties of kombucha, and I like to kind of pour that into a fancy glass and sip on that while I read by the fire. That's sort of my like bubbly for the night.
I love that. And so if someone is into cocktails and they want to kind of wrap that into their post Whole30 journey, what would you say would be a great choice for them?
It's so funny. People often ask me, what is the sort of best alcohol to drink, right? Is it, red wine that's low sulfite, or is it tequila, which doesn't have any grains? The entire purpose of the Whole30 is to figure out the foods, and in this case, the drinks that work best in your unique body. So when you eliminate alcohol for 30 days and then add it back in very carefully according to the Whole30 structure, you will figure out whether red wine gives you the worst headache and a terrible night's sleep, but a low sugar margarita actually doesn't work that poorly for you and makes you feel okay. So it's really about figuring out what works best for you and then making those informed decisions.
And that is something, again, that we'll get into, but I really love about the Whole30 is because it is so individualized and it's not that this is what you have to do for everyone, because sometimes when it doesn't work for you, you feel like you're failing and it might not be supposed to work for you, like, in that kind of sense.
Yes, every dietitian in the world says there is no one size fits all when it comes to diet. You have to figure out what works for you. And that makes sense to people. They say, yes, of course, like it has to be individualized, but how do I figure out what works for me? And Whole30 really is the answer to how.
That's awesome. And so what is your complaint wine of the week?
I mean, I'm kind of complaining about social media right now. It's a blessing and a curse, isn't it? But I'm unhappy with the amount of AI in my feed, and I'm unhappy with the
Mhm.
direction social media is going, and it's becoming less social. So
Right.
that's kind of that's my complaint du jour.
I was actually thinking of that the other day too, where it's like you can just put a prompt for whatever it is, or tell ChatGPT to like make a prompt. There's a lot of things that I'm scrolling through that are like advice that you're like, this is clearly AI created. And I love AI. I use it almost every day, but you have to make it personalized and give it information rather than just saying like, "Hey, make a prompt on the 10 best baby formulas to have," or something like that.
Yes, and as of right now, it's somewhat easy to delineate ChatGPT writing from regular, real
Right.
person human writing, but it's getting harder to discern, especially in images, which is scary.
Well, I yesterday went into CapCut and you can make pictures into videos. And I put a picture of my daughter when she was really little and she was a baby, it was a newborn thing. I was like, I want to try this out. And I said to make it into a video. It was incredibly realistic and it was very scary that about how it was the cutest video that it made. It was she was, but I was like, wow, this you can't tell is AI and that's like on a low, easy CapCut, what are
Yes,
they doing on higher levels?
exactly. I mean, the more I dig into it, the more it's just terrifying, and I think it's gonna be the end of all of us, but that's not what we're here to talk about.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your win of the week.
But that's a what a fun one. Oh my goodness. I went out last night. So it's a weeknight. My husband
Yeah.
and I are very much homebodies, and also we're old people, so we go to bed really early. But we had a friend who had a really fantastic short film premiere with another brand. So we went out to Park City and we met a bunch of our friends and we stayed out until like 8:30, which is very late for us. So and it was really, really fun. So that felt like a really nice win.
That's great.
Yeah.
And so I always like to ask my guests, what is one significant challenge you successfully navigated shaping your journey to where you are today?
It's gotta be my drug addiction. I mean, that's really what kicked off my entire wellness journey. I got out of rehab for the second time in 2000 and realized that I had to change everything about my life if I was going to make it stick this time, and I thought, "What would a healthy person do?" Because I hadn't been healthy in a very long time, and I thought a healthy person would start going to the gym in the morning before work. That's the epitome of health, is you get up early to go to the gym, and I started doing that 5 days a week, and that led to me paying attention to what I ate and changing the food that I put on my plate, and, I quit smoking cigarettes, and I quit drinking so much coffee, and I started going to bed earlier, and that was really kind of the beginning of Whole30 and my entire sort of journey into wellness, so that and it was a pretty big challenge.
Yeah, a negative into a positive. That's
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
So let's get into fitness real quick. What is your favorite way to stay active?
I firmly believe that anything that you find fun and rewarding is fitness,
Hmm.
period. I don't have any goals right now. Nobody's paying me to run faster or to have a goal or to learn how to do a handstand push up. I tend to train cyclically, and that's just sort of what my body likes. In summer, I just want to be outside. So I'm lifting weights lighter. I'm in my garage with the door rolled open. I'm hiking a ton and I'm trail running exclusively. And come fall, it's like I'm itching to get back to some heavy lifting. So I'm back in the gym. I'm not doing endurance anymore. I'm doing short bursts of higher intensity and I'm lifting heavier. And I take breaks anytime I feel like it, or I'll delve into something like Pilates or yoga anytime I want to.
That's great. And that is so important. And lifelong fitness really is the goal. And as I always say, as we get older, we're not training for the marathons. We're training for like we're 80, which is the most important thing. And you can see, I mean, I see it with my parents and grandparents, and my grandma just turned 89 and she still walks every day. And I feel like that is such a huge portion of why she, you'd think she's like maybe 70.
Yes. I think walking is like the most underrated form of exercise. I say all the time walking is exercise. It counts.
Of course.
Getting outside and having those kind of green spaces and the long field of vision. And sometimes you do it with a friend and it's moving meditation. There are so many benefits to walking. And that's something I do every day.
That's great. And how does maintaining your fitness routine contribute to your mental health?
I probably would have said when I first got out of rehab that like I can't miss a workout. I was
Mhm.
really in that mindset of I relied on my workouts for my mental health. Now, movement first thing in the day is been part of my routine for 20 plus years, and it certainly contributes in a positive way to my mental health. I
Mhm.
find that if I can move, whether it's a walk or a trail run or a hard workout or an easy workout, kind of helps me physically process whatever stress or discomfort or negative emotion maybe swirling around, such that afterward I'm able to sort of drop in and process it on a more emotional level. It's almost like I have to pitch a little physical tantrum first. But
Yes, I love that.
yeah, but if I can't work out, it's like that's fine too.
Right.
It's not something that I need. And I like I said, I will count a short walk as movement. Like that works for me too.
Yeah. And it's important to remember that any kind of movement is movement, like I
Yes.
always say. That's great.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little parenthood. Can you tell us about your family?
I can. I have a son. He is almost 13. And yeah, he's a He's into sports and he's into nerdy math stuff, and I
That's
tell
great.
him all the time that the older he gets, the more I like him. He's a lot of
Aw.
fun right now.
What were you least prepared for in parenthood?
I mean, everything. Everything. Even if someone had tried to tell me what it was gonna be like or some of the challenges or how to get through it, like, you wouldn't have listened. I don't think you can
Mm-mm.
possibly understand until you get there. I think everyone I was at least so focused on having a baby that it didn't occur to me that I was also going to have an 8-month-old and a 16-month-old and a 5-year-old and an
Right.
8-year-old, so I'm sort of just taking it as it goes, but, yeah, I just keep reminding myself that nobody knows what they're doing. Everyone just figures it out.
Yes, and they do. That's so true. What do you think your parenting style is?
I'm not authoritarian because that's how I was raised, and I responded very well to that, "Do it because we said so." I'm eldest daughter, I'm
Me
very
too.
much an upholder, I was
Yes.
the pleasure to have in class and wanted the gold stars. I respond well to that, my son does not, he is a head butter. So, I wouldn't say it's gentle parenting either, we do talk about boundaries often. I do help him try to identify his emotions and emotionally kind of process them with me or emotionally regulate with me. We're big fans of natural consequences.
That's
So
great.
the reason, you forget your backpack and you don't have your Chromebook at school today, and it's like, this is the seventh time I've said, hey, before you leave, you should check to make sure you have everything. And he's like, what am I gonna do? And I'm like, I don't know. Why don't you tell me? What do you think is gonna happen? What do you think you could do?
Right.
So that's, I think, how we're trying to raise him is to sort of be self-sufficient and not be able to think for himself, and certainly not to depend on a mother or a girlfriend or a wife as he gets older.
I absolutely love that so much. That's great. Maybe the best thing anybody could say. But what's one piece of advice that you give to other parents?
I don't know that I give advice to other parents, to be honest. I was never a better parent than before I had a kid. I used to say all kinds of stuff, and I'm like, I would smack myself for saying that now. So I don't know that I give advice on parenting. I receive advice. My
Yeah.
husband and I have been together since my son was about 5. I'm not
Okay.
with his dad anymore, and my husband often offers me parenting advice because he's looking at our relationship sort of from a different perspective, so I
Right.
take it very well. But I don't think I've ever offered it. I think I know better than that.
All right. Well, now let's get into the Whole30. So, to kind of kick it off, you shared your wellness journey began after you got out of rehab. But can you give a brief explanation, first of all, of what the Whole30 is and the moment you kind of realized it was no longer just for your personal usage and you felt like you need to bring it to other people's lives?
Yeah, so you can think of the Whole30 like a 30-day self-experiment, but it truly is an elimination and reintroduction program. So for 30 days, you'll eliminate food groups that are commonly problematic to varying degrees across a broad range of people. You're going to pull those foods out of your diet 100% and see how the absence of those foods impacts your energy, your sleep, your digestion and bloating, your cravings, your mood and focus, and aches and pains and migraines and hot flashes. All of those things can be impacted by the food you eat. At the end of those 30 days, you'll bring those food groups back in one at a time, very carefully and systematically, like a scientific experiment, and you'll compare your experience. So, this is where I was talking about the personalized food blueprint and kind of figuring out what works best for you through your elimination and reintroduction. You'll know the foods that may have been quietly holding you back, and you'll know the foods that work well in your unique body. And then you'll use that to create your own joyful, sustainable, broad dietary plan for the rest of your life. So that's the
Mhm.
the crux of Whole30.
And when did you decide that you just weren't going to be using it, but you would felt like other people could use it in their lives?
Whole30 started as a two-person self-experiment in 2009. It was just me and a friend, and we just decided to do this sort of 30-day kind of squeaky clean. And we had tremendous results, different results, but remarkably similar in that so
Mhm.
many things dramatically improved. I decided to write about it on my little CrossFit training blog, and maybe 100 people said I would be interested in learning more about it. So I outlined the program and kind of led people through it in the comments section. When two people get remarkable results, you think to yourself, that's interesting. When 100 people get remarkable and astonishingly similar results, that was the moment where I thought, this is something.
Yeah. Wow, how cool.
Yeah.
We're like I said, we're in the holiday time, but the new year is kind of a natural time when people are gonna think, you're starting fresh. In your view, what do you think makes January such a powerful launch point for the Whole30? And what do you say to someone who's maybe thinking, I'll wait till February to do it?
So I'll talk about the positives first. January 1st, of course, feels like you're turning the page. You literally are turning the page in your calendar to a new year.
Yeah.
So it feels like a fresh start. And a lot of people do want to kind of memorialize that fresh start with some kind of commitment or an effort. Also, you're coming off the holiday season, which for a lot of people throws you totally off your routine.
Yeah.
You're traveling, you're at parties, your exposure to various foods and drink is totally different. You're probably, maybe you're off of work. And so you're kind of relaxing your like, is that worth it analysis? And so coming back to something that's a little more structured and has a little bit more routine can feel really good. Also, if you get through the January Whole30, by the middle of February, it can feel very good to go into those winter doldrum months of March and April where I
Mhm.
tend to get like seasonal depression-ish,
For sure.
and your energy is great, your self-confidence is up, you're sleeping well. That can feel good too. Of course, the reason that January is such a popular month is because weight loss diet culture has indoctrinated all of us into the
Right.
idea that we need to do a weight loss diet starting in January. So you can't ignore the impact of that as well. But Whole30 is something different.
Mhm.
And it does offer both a different mindset and different benefits than something like that. We really don't include any weight loss stuff in our program.
Yeah, which isn't the goal. It's the feel, not the
Yes.
weight number.
Yeah.
So, for busy moms, and I speak for so many of us listening, routines are tricky. How do you simplify the Whole30 for someone who's doing school drop-offs, carpooling, dinner, laundry, bedtime, but still want to try to weave this into their life?
I'm pretty sure I just wrote an article called How to Do the Whole30 When You're Busy for this very reason. I think people take a look at the program rules, the what you're not eating for 30 days, what you are eating for 30 days, and it can feel intimidating. And it can feel to people like, okay, I need a spreadsheet and a super complicated meal plan, and I have to cook a different recipe every night. And I'm always like, time out. Cook a protein, cook some veggies, throw it on a plate, add a dressing or sauce, you're done. You can go
Mhm.
through all 30 days of your Whole30 just cooking what I call ingredient meals.
Mhm.
And they're delicious and they're filling, and you can get a good variety in there. You can batch cook and eat 2 or 3 different meals with the same base of ground meat and veggies. So there are certainly ways to simplify it. Also, if you have access to convenience products, if your budget allows for that, get Whole30 meal delivery. We'll send you
Mhm.
meals to your door every single week. Go to Chipotle and order a Whole30 bowl. You can, buy convenience products in the grocery store that are labeled Whole30 approved. So instead of making your own ranch dressing, you can go buy Tessie Mae's or Primal Kitchen. So there are a lot of ways to approach the Whole30 depending on whether you have kind of more money than time or more time than money or somewhere in the middle. And we offer all kinds of resources that span the gamut.
That's great. And yeah, as you're saying this, I'm thinking of, oh yeah, I know where this is in my grocery store. That it is kind of easy to put it in. So you also talked about how Whole30 is an experiment of one, figuring how food, really affects you personally. How do you help someone move from I'm going to do this because everyone says I should to I'm going to do this because I want to know personally what happened?
I talk a lot about finding your Whole30 why.
Mhm.
Your why is this internal motivation. It is the goal that you have that is deeply personal. And it's not because someone else says that you should or someone else has this expectation. And your why will trickle into every area of your life. We have a few exercises to help people find their why and to see how that why is going to impact other areas besides just their own health and habits. So, finding your why and then using that as your North Star can be incredibly helpful for any habit change, but especially something as big as the Whole30. It can help ground you in times of stress, help you decision make when things get complicated. It's a really nice anchor. And if you keep that, on a post it note or as your screensaver on your phone, it can really remind you throughout the course of your program why you're doing this and the deeply personal reasons and the benefits that you want to see out of it.
Yeah, that's so true. And I'm thinking I'm gonna put it on my mirror in my in my
Yeah.
bathroom will be a
Yeah.
good one to put the Post-it note.
It's a perfect place.
Yeah. So to kind of go back a question, I was thinking about this. Parents that are listening right now, they still might think like, I don't have time. So what is one go-to tip for reducing maybe prep time, staying on track, or planning in a way that doesn't feel overwhelming?
I think the idea of cooking once and eating multiple times is a game changer. And this is how I personally eat. So I talk about one of my famous recipe templates is ground meat with stuff, and then you put it
Mm,
over stuff. And what it means is you basically Cook like 2 pounds of ground meat, ground beef, turkey, or chicken, or lamb, or bison. You cook a bunch of vegetables, whether you roast them, or air fry them, or saute them, just a bunch of mix of vegetables, and you put them in your fridge and you don't
Mhm.
season them or do anything with them. And then when you go to eat, you can use your dressing or sauce or the base or condiments to mix up the flavor. So your ground meat and veggies could go over spaghetti squash one night with pasta sauce. It could go over a bed of lettuce with guacamole and salsa and a chipotle ranch another night. That's a way that you can kind of maximize your cooking time, but not get bored of eating the same flavors over and over.
And I think batch cooking is so underrated. Like, I feel as though anytime I have a busy week, that's kind of what I lean to. I just like make a bunch of veggies or protein and then just like you said, combine it all together. And I'm like, why don't I do this all the time? This is so easy. Like, I,
It's easy, it's delicious. I think the other tip I have for people is stop thinking about it in terms of breakfast and just start thinking it's my first meal of the day.
right.
When I changed from eating eggs and making eggs for myself every single morning for breakfast to eating this ground meat with veggies, my energy was better, my focus was better, my satiety was better. You can eat anything for breakfast. So if you have leftover chili, that's your breakfast or that's your lunch. Cooking extra and having leftovers is also key.
Yeah. I also need to take that advice because I'm not a breakfast like person, but I love savory dishes. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I need to start doing that too. So January is going to roll around and people are going to have that aspirational energy. It's high, but by week 2 or 3, that's when people kind of start to falter. What's the most common mindset roadblocks you see in that mid program phase and
Mhm.
what can kind of help people carry through?
I think people are under the impression that they have to be motivated all the time. That the way that you make a commitment stick is by staying motivated. And I think that's backwards. It is impossible to be motivated 100% of the time. And in my experience, motivation doesn't precede action, action precedes motivation. So if you have a commitment and you get to that sticking point, instead of relying on motivation, you think to yourself, what's one thing I could do today in honor of this commitment? Make it so small that you can't miss. Maybe it's not, I'm going to stick to my Whole30 today because 3 days, 3 meals in a day feels overwhelming. But I'm just going to have a Whole30 breakfast. I'm going to do that. And then I'll kind of see how things go. But just taking that action can
Hmm.
often spawn the motivation. It can remind you why you're doing what you're doing, or it can buy you the time and space to go, what am I stressed about right now? What's overwhelming? And what could I do to honor this commitment around these other things that are happening in my life?
So important. And that's, I feel like that's like the weekend thing where it's like people binge on the weekend. They're like, well, I messed up this meal. So the rest of the meals have to be, you know, McDonald's or whatever. But what you're just saying is like, yeah, you can have one meal that's bad and then just go to the next meal and do it a little better, add some veggies to it or something. And I think people kind of forget that they can do that.
Yes, there's an actual psychological phenomenon called the what the hell effect, which
Yeah.
is, I have one mad meal and then it's like, well, what the hell? I might as
Yep.
well kind of eat like this the rest of the weekend. I think that's another reason why the Whole30 is so popular and so many people who start it actually do finish it is very black and white.
Right.
And honestly, habit research shows that black and white habit changes can be easier for the brain to follow because there's no negotiating with
Yeah.
yourself. There's no sort of willpower or executive function involved. It's just, that's not on my list. I'm not going to eat it. And for a lot of people, they find that very comforting and even freeing. It takes one more decision off of your plate when, as a busy mom, you already have a zillion decisions to make.
Yeah. Yeah. So the other thing, you've written about boundaries in food and in life as being kind of central. Can you talk about how establishing boundaries, with food or with kids or work, they play into the success of something like the Whole30, especially with moms juggling so much?
Yes, I have an entire book on boundaries, which really stemmed from my work with Whole30. You say
Mhm.
no a lot on the Whole30, right? To the office pizza party or the drink at happy hour. And I realized people were really uncomfortable saying no. I describe boundaries as the hammock that supports your healthy habits. So if you make a commitment to exercise for 20 minutes every morning, but you don't have boundaries with others and yourself to protect and preserve that commitment, it's kind of doomed to fail. So, boundaries can be incredibly important for protecting your time, your energy, your capacity, your mental health, your finances, but they're also a fantastic way to avoid resentment and
Mhm.
anger and frustration and burnout and all of those things that moms tend to bear the burden of in family dynamics.
Yeah. So important. And we all need boundaries around the holidays, especially. I feel like that's like all that I'm like trying to mentally do
Yes.
mental gymnastics with it. Do I need a boundary for this or not?
I'm talking about that a lot right now, and I have a lot of grandmas in my comments not very happy with me,
I
but
know.
I'm really empowering moms to say, "You deserve the holidays that you want to." It's not just about everybody else's expectations. It's okay to prioritize what you and your little family unit
Right.
wants.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say I'm very lucky. My mother-in-law and my mom are both like, whatever you guys need to do because they like I feel as though we're pulled in so many different directions as
Mhm.
moms that they're
Yep.
like, we understand if you can't be here or there, we would like you there, but
Yeah.
they never, thankfully.
Yeah.
Not yet
That's so
anyway.
right. Yes. Yeah. We're lucky that our parents are like that too.
Yeah. So let's have a little fun. January 1st, when you're starting this, obviously it's not just about us as parents. We have a whole family to feed. So if you're doing a mommy Whole30 kickoff minus the wine for the party, what are some rituals that you would suggest to like make day one fun for the whole family, especially the kids, maybe even your husband? Because I don't know,
Yeah.
my husband can just eat like chicken and rice and he's fine, but my kids want like the fun and me too.
Yeah, I think it's important to have a conversation with your family, your spouse, and your kids if they're old enough, or at least in an age appropriate way to let them know what you'll be doing. To say, like, hey, mom's going to do this really fun self experiment. I'm going to leave these foods out. I'm going to enjoy all of these foods. I'm going to try new foods every single day. And I'll share some of the ways that I can cook some of your favorite meals, but just have that conversation so expectations are clear up front. And also think about if you're as a family, you do pizza parties every Friday, are you still gonna do the pizza party, but you're just gonna order a salad instead or have
Mhm.
your own meal, or are you just gonna do something other than pizza parties? Think about some of the favorite meals that you cook for your family or your kids if you're the primary grocery shopper and chef at home, and how could you make them Whole30 friendly? Could you make them
Mhm.
Whole30 friendly, but they add their own bread or they add their own rice? I think having continuing rituals is really important. It'd be wonderful to show your kids that you can still celebrate a birthday or have a family game night. And it doesn't really matter what's in your glass or on your plate. It's about the time together and the memories and the
Mhm.
traditions. I think that's a really wonderful lesson that the Whole30 can teach. And I definitely don't want you to become a Whole30 hermit. I want you to stay social. I want you to maintain those fun, traditions. Figure out how to do it in a way that honors your health commitment because that's a skill that will kind of continue for the rest of your life if you want to maintain some healthy habits.
Yeah, and so for someone who's never done the Whole30, maybe what's one thing that you wish they knew they started that will make the difference between because I always hear people February 1st, I survived no drink January or I survived doing only vegetarians. What's going to make the difference between I survived the 30 days and I just changed my whole relationship with food?
Yeah. You can white knuckle your way through the Whole30. You can
Mhm.
follow the technical program rules and eat this and not eat that and go through your program with blinders on just to check off the box and say, okay, for 30 days, I did that. Or you can embrace the spirit and intention of the Whole30, which is to truly reset your health, your habits, create new tools for navigating stress and discomfort and negative emotions that don't involve automatically reaching for food or drink, restoring a healthy relationship with food and your body, focusing on non scale victories, all of the things that can get better just because you change the food that you put on your plate. Commit to elimination and reintroduction. Your Whole30 is not over at the end of 30 days. You still have to reintroduce, and that's half the learning experience. If you go into it thinking, I'm really going to embrace the philosophy, it's a complete game changer.
And then, yeah, so to kind of get into my next question about food freedom forever, that is something that is a goal that you want people to have. And so, how do you define that? And how do you help someone move from restriction, which does come from diet culture, to freedom while still doing the program? Like, how can you kind of separate
Yeah.
that?
It's a great question. The whole point of the Whole30 is to get you to food freedom, where you have done the elimination and reintroduction. You trust the signals your body is sending you. You know the foods that work well and the foods that do not. So no matter what shows up on the media or from your favorite influencer about this food being good or this food being
Mhm.
toxic, you know what works for you and you trust that. And you take that information with you into your food freedom. So when you're at a party and someone offers you a glass of red wine, you ask yourself, is it worth it? Based on what I know from my Whole30 experience, is that glass of red wine worth it? If it is, you drink it. with joy. And I want your diet to be as broad and joyful as possible. If it's not worth it, you decline, but you're not declining because you're being good, and I'm making quotey
Right.
fingers, or because, you can't afford the calories or whatever. You're doing it because you yourself know that the consequences of drinking it aren't worth the
Mhm.
joy or satisfaction you're going to get. And so there's no deprivation, there's no restriction. It's just you feeling empowered to make the decisions that feel right for you in that moment.
Yeah. And so when we get into January, obviously, again, we have those fresh goals, but we have some leftover habits from the holiday season, and we are probably like peak least healthy in a way, just coming off of those food things that we normally maybe wouldn't be having. How can you maybe advise someone to transition from holiday mode into Whole30, like something gentle? Because I think sometimes a lot of us, not even talking about 2 to 3 weeks in for motivation, but those first couple days, you're like, "Oh my gosh, I feel terrible." With anything, you're like, "I feel," which we understand is because we've just been indulging so much, but what
Yeah.
suggestions would you have for that?
Okay. The good news is that this year, the January Whole30 doesn't start until January 5th.
Yeah.
So you do have some time, and I would highly recommend not YOLOing your way into, like, the night before the Whole30 where you're eating as much of the sugar and the carbs and the alcohol as you can, because, like, the next day. I really love a slow roll approach. So, do have your January fun, your New Year's Eve fun, New Year's Day, and then come New Year's Day or January 2nd, you start making small changes in the direction of the Whole30. So maybe you're not
Mhm,
eliminating all alcohol, but it's like, I'm just going to have one glass, or I would normally maybe have a glass on a Tuesday night, but I'm going to skip it tonight. It's not
mhm,
eliminating all added sugar, but it's thinking, how could I, introduce more veggies on my plate? Or maybe I won't have the ice cream tonight. I'll do something else. So it's slowly easing your way towards the program rules as a means of making that day. And day one's usually not the worst day. It's like day two, day three.
yeah.
And I really want to ease that. Like, I don't want you to fall off a cliff. I would rather it be like a gentle decline.
Right. Yeah. So you've spoken about habit change. You've talked about boundaries. You've talked about transformation. What's the biggest underlying shift beyond food that you see in people who complete the whole thing and then roll it into their lives?
I mean, I've said, and I will continue to say that the Whole30 has benefits that spill over into every area of your life in such unexpected ways. But I really think at the heart of it is this idea of restoring trust in yourself and trusting the signals that your body is sending you. We have been
Hmm.
taught for our entire lives that we can't be trusted. We
Hmm.
don't know what our bodies are saying because when we're hungry, diet culture tells us, no, you're not. You're not hungry. Just have a glass of water. And we're not, qualified to make our own decisions around food. We have to wait and see what this person recommends or that media article recommends. And so through all of these different influences, we've really become disconnected from our body.
Hmm.
We don't tell ourselves that we're hungry or full because we've hit our calories or macros for the day. What the Whole30 does is reconnects you to those
Right.
signals. It helps you stay present and grounded in your body. It helps you trust the signals your body is sending you. And that benefit spills over into so many areas because when you are trusting of yourself, that builds into your self confidence at work. That builds into you
Right.
setting boundaries in your relationships. It builds into being more patient with your kids because you're feeling more grounded and centered and settled. So, for me, I think that's one of the most underrated benefits and something that is it's always an undercurrent of
Yeah.
Whole30 stories.
Yeah. So let's fast forward. We've completed the 30 days. What does success look like after the whole 30? And more importantly, how do we maintain what we've gained without feeling deprived or out of control for the rest of the year?
Yes. So, thinking about your food freedom plan, taking what you've learned, asking yourself, is it worth it? Do I want it? Really making those conscientious, deliberate decisions is key. If you find yourself restricting beyond the reason of, well, I know this
Mhm.
food doesn't work well for me, then that's kind of a red
Mhm.
flag of, wait, why am I restricting oats? Because I know
Right.
they work great for me. So that can be a key. I will also say this, it is impossible to expect any 30-day program, even one as great as the Whole30, to completely overwrite your habits, those
Right.
habits that have been in place for decades. So usually people work their food freedom plan and then something throws them off their game. Maybe it's a
Mhm.
holiday, maybe it's a vacation, maybe it's a stressful event, maybe it's just sort of a slow slide back into old habits. And then they find, all right, I don't feel Whole30 good anymore and I miss it and I want to. And they'll come back and do another program. So
Mhm.
repeating the program can help kind of solidify those foods that work well and foods that don't, but they can also kind of bring you back to that place of feeling Whole30 good. And every time you get there, you think to yourself, I really don't want to feel anything other than this. And that helps you solidify your habits post Whole30.
So after you've done the first one, you kind of, I mean, like, I'm just thinking I would keep like a journal as I bring things in about what doesn't work and what does work. So could your like second Whole30 journey look different if you know, for example, that oats work with you or red wine works with you? Like, would you suggest just completely restarting?
It's a wonderful question, and the answer is the Whole30 is always the Whole30, no matter what
Okay.
you're finding. But the reason for that is this: in future, like in my first Whole30, I identified foods that didn't work well.
Hmm.
By my fifth Whole30, because I've been doing this since 2009, it's been
Right.
17 years, so I've done more than a few. By my fifth Whole30, I discovered that foods I thought worked well didn't actually
Didn't.
work that well, and
Hmm.
I sort of just had to admit that red wine was not for me. That's like not my drink of choice. But foods that didn't work well before worked very well now. And your health is always changing, your hormones are changing, your
Right.
stress levels, history. So all of these things are constantly evolving, and every Whole30 gives you the opportunity to learn more about your body, but also to evaluate how things have shifted.
Yeah. And so we all, I mean, food can be comfort for so many of us. And I think when we think of something like that is black and white with you can and you can't, we're like, what? I'm not going to have a comfort food. Or, but do you have a Whole30 style favorite comfort meal or snack that, kind of feels good after a long day?
So I want to be super clear. I don't think that eating for comfort is bad. I
Hmm.
still eat for comfort. There is nothing wrong. Food is inherently comforting. What I want to do for the Whole30 is expand your toolbox so that food or drink is not your only coping
Right.
mechanism and such that it's not the first one that you automatically reach for. I want you to have a vast array of tools that you can choose from. And if sometimes the tool that you choose is food or drink, awesome. I love that for you. You can find similar comforts in Whole30 meals, foods that feel like home. That's always a
Hmm.
good one. If there's any meal that reminds you of your mom or your family or your childhood, spaghetti and meatballs, and now you're making Whole30 meatballs over spaghetti squash with pasta sauce, that can feel really comforting. There are a lot of fun foods like wings and ranch dressing that are still perfectly Whole30 compatible. So you'll find those foods that feel restorative, they feel connecting for you. And then once your Whole30 is over, you get to figure out the role that your previous comfort foods have in your
Hmm.
ongoing food freedom.
Yeah. Well, you have given us so much information. As we kind of realize, Whole30 often becomes a doorway for deeper self respect. So, if you could share one message about living a whole life, not just a Whole30, what would you want every person listening to hear today?
One of the most important tenets for me is to always show up as myself. I don't make myself small for anybody. I show up as me. I don't want to image craft. I don't want to be an imposter in my own life. That just feels icky. And when you do that, first of all, it requires you to kind of sit down with the parts of you that you don't love so much, but that's a really healthy practice too. But you can never get that wrong. If you're always showing up as you, you're always showing up in your integrity. And that's one of the things that I've tried to live by.
That's great. And that's the perfect way to end it. So that's going to bring us to the end of another episode of The Running Wine Mom. I know so many moms listening are walking away feeling grounded, feeling supported, and maybe even a little excited to take back their health starting January 5th. And to everyone tuning in, remember, as Melissa said, a Whole30 can be a doorway into so much more: deeper self respect, better boundaries, and a sense of coming home to yourself. And you all deserve that. You deserve to feel so good about your body and your life. So thank you, Melissa, for talking about that.
Happy to share.
Yeah. As always, thank you for spending time with us today on The Running Wine Mom. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share the episode with a mom who needs to hear it. You can follow me on Instagram at the running wine mom _. And Melissa, can you tell the listeners where to find you and where to find info on January 5th's big launch?
That's right. You can go to whole30.com, our website, and we have tons of different support options from a private, community with its own app to a video course to a free email series that will guide you through it. So everything's at whole30.com. And you can find me primarily on Instagram at Melissa Yu.
And I will link all of that in the show notes. So thank you again, Melissa, for this.
Thanks for having me, Samantha.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Remember, you are strong, you are capable, and you are all amazing. Until next time, keep running, keep sipping, and keep embracing the joy of motherhood. Cheers, and I will be back next Tuesday.